leads it to be just a dynamic situation. And some of the craziest bites that I've ever got on have been because it was a storm. It was a very early hurricane, not a nor'easter, hurricanes, and then there was mullet. And it's that story that I've told before that some of you may not have heard, but there was a bite once. There had been mullet. I had been doing okay, and then there was a storm, and I showed up at the spot, and it was really. I'm going to try to do this really fast. It was a very difficult place to fish. The waves were much too big. It was too dangerous. I went out anyways. I got blasted off a rock multiple times. I stuck it out. I hooked a fish. Couldn't turn it. It broke me off. I couldn't retie, so I went back to shore. Retied. I was like, I can't go back out there again. I got in another rock. I had 4 darters with me. Maybe it was 6. I think it was only 4. I don't ever carry 6. It had to be 4. I carry 6 after this time, but anyways. Get out to the rock. Very first cast. Hook a fish. Burns off drag. I'm fighting it in. Burns off drag again. I'm fighting it again. It turns, runs again, breaks me off. And I'm like, are you kidding? Long story short, I landed 1 fish that night, and it actually wasn't on a darter. It was on a hooker metal lip, and it was 35 pounds, and I just about water skied across the surface of the water. And I broke off 4 fish, and I lost 1 more that came off on all those darters, and I lost all of my darters. And I just went back to shore, and I just sat down, and I just laughed my ass off. And I just was like, well, I guess I'm going to go home. Because what am I going to do? I mean, what are you going to do? What am I going to keep? I'm feeding these fish these lures. I don't have any more darters anyways. I just lost over $80 worth of super strikes. Like, what am I going to do? So anyways, that was a mullet bite. And that's like a really cool story, like a fun story that I think back about. Like, man, what were those fish? And I've had 40 to 47 pound fish at that spot pretty much every year. I think this year was the only time. But I got a 38 this August in this bite with a mullet. Oh, see, I'm not going fast though. I'm sorry. A lot of you don't have mullet. Okay, I got to go faster. Mid-high water column. Okay. I'm usually trying to stay near the surface. For those of you who don't know, mullet really like skim across the surface, and they'll actually jump and they skip across the surface. And a lot of anglers will think that's because they're being harassed, and it's not always. Sometimes they just do it. I don't know why. They just do it. Again, tight shore, but not always. So thinking about presenting your plug down the shore at an angle to the shore. I don't usually cast and go right down the shore, because if you've got any kind of waves, it's going to push it in, right? So I usually am at an angle and pulling it back towards shore. But again, there's a spot that I fish that has some depth contour stuff that I think the mullet sort of follow along. And so they'll be pretty far out. I mean, like a full cast. The Weston actually is very powerful because they can cast really far. I find that the mullet, even though that they're like filter feeders and stuff, in my areas, they tend to sort of be moving with the current. They're not quite like bunker. They seem to be a little bit more mobile to me. But they generally move with the current. But they're also just kind of hanging at night. They're kind of chilling wherever they're chilling. Okay. I just remembered something I forgot. Go back to the storms for a second, just really quickly. Even better time than the buildup of the storm, post-storm. Like, water's still dirty, still a little bit of wave. That's also when I've had some of my best bites on mullet. Okay. So this particular string of tides this year, just for reference, once I found out the mullet were there, I basically just fished the spot independent of the tide. And you guys know who listen to me a lot, but those who don't know, that's never something I do. It's almost never. That this is basically the only time I'll ever do it is when there's mullet. I'm always fishing some kind of plan of structure and timing and current and depth and all that stuff. Once I knew there was mullet, I was like, all right, well, I guess I know what I'm going to do, as much as my knee can take. And actually, I found him by accident because I went out looking for peanuts because I was testing out the new Tsunami forged rod. Can I talk about that rod? I think so. Well, I'm going to. Oh, well. I was testing out the Tsunami forged rod, the new rod that they're coming out with, which is just fantastic. I mean, it's like, I was loving it. Even if they don't send me one, I'm buying one. So I'll be on the lookout for that. It's going to be cheap, I think, and I loved it. I went out because I thought there might be fish on peanut bunker, because peanut bunker can really accumulate to this spot, and I thought it would be good just to kind of test it out on moderately or small fish. And as it turns out, there was these giants that I didn't have the horsepower with this rod to really work in as quickly as possible on the glider, and I ended up losing quite a few fish. That's another story for another time. I did get plenty of 20 and 25 pound fish, and I topped out at 38. So, and I lost some really nice fish. when you're fishing on mullet, you really want to be thinking herky-jerky in terms of the speed at which you're retrieving, adding in lots of different jerking motions, sweeping motions, really breaking up anything robotic. And burst of speed. You really want to do really fast burst of speed. And that was the critical component of this year of this bite. But it's been before, so I don't want to make too big, like, oh, this is the first time this has ever worked. But this year, using plugs, I would have to like go, ooh, let's change camera angles. Let's change some camera angle. I would have to like go like this. And I would, and I would stop. And I would do that both with the Westons and actually Texas Angler Darter. And I'll talk about this in a second, the plugs. So for me, that fast retrieve was everything. I think it was really important. Was it even the glider and the Weston that mattered? Or was it the fact that I could present it in that manner? I'm not sure. Okay, so plugs. So when it comes to mullet, I spent too much time on mullet probably. Whoops, I didn't go back to the nice camera. This thing is being a little herky-jerky itself. All right, so when it comes to mullet, there's really only two things that I want to fish. It used to primarily be darter. I used to fish darters a lot. And soft plastics like the Sluggo. But the Sluggo, it's almost too subtle for the mullet. So I would often rely on current and storms and darter. That would really be what I would do. So, I mean, you don't really need any other darter besides the Super Strike. I think the Super Strike is everything that you need for that. I don't think you don't have to go looking any further than that. But I will say, for the first time in ever, or many years at least, I was catching fish this year on the Tactical Angler Sub Darter. Not really a darter. It's swimmy, right? It swims. And actually, in this particular case, that was advantageous because I could go fast and it would swim, and I didn't have as much current in the spot. The spot doesn't have as much current. It really relies on wave action. And so this, not being a true darter, actually became advantageous. And I caught fish after not catching fish for an hour and a half. All of a sudden, I'm banging fish on the little sub darter. So that was kind of cool. But there's no question that for me this year, what did I do with it? Oh, crap. Are you kidding me? Hold on. I have another one. I just have so many lures on my desk, I don't even have to find the original one because I just have so much shit on my desk. The 12 centimeter Weston Swim. Weston Swim. You don't have to get the SW because you should change the hooks anyways. This plug in suspending. And this plug, which is the 15 centimeter, which is the plug of the year for me. We'll talk about this maybe more in the Boulder Fields. I won't talk about it so much tonight because I'm already going so long. Plug of the year. Now I don't even want to fish the 12 centimeters anymore because I'm so obsessed with the 15 centimeter. This was the plug that they were just annihilating. Just absolutely annihilating. Okay? And fishing it really fast. And I had to fish it a little fast because the water was shallow and this thing sinks a lot faster. But what's interesting about this 15 centimeter, which I didn't appreciate until I started fishing it a lot more this year, and I lost an unbelievable fish, which maybe I'll tell the story at some point on the podcast or during the series or something. I'm not going to tell right now. I lost an unbelievable fish, and that 51, that was on this guy, after banging fish for 3 hours on darters. The 15 centimeter is not as loud, and it has a different frequency. And I don't know if that matters or not, but I bet it does. The other gliders I do like, though. Where is... What's over there? Oops. The other gliders I do think will work well around mullet, and I've had some success, or I just have hypothesis that they will work. is anything of similar size. And now you can have things without rattles in them that maybe are necessary for more subtle approach. That was a convoluted way of saying they're quiet. I really like Larson's gliders. He's a newer guy, and they're inexpensive, and they work nice, and the finish is nice. And thank God he changed from a fixed hook point to a swivel. And I don't fish them with a rear hook on them, and they work great. They're not as stable as the Weston. You can't go as crazy with them. The Yo-Zuri, this is more subtle. These are pretty... They don't have a ton of swim like the Westons. The Weston swim is just... They're so superior in like every way. But these have a more subtle swim, and I think that subtle swim can be advantageous. And don't sleep on the Mad Mantis Quake. Maybe we'll talk about this more when we get to the Sand Beach next week. But this is a friggin' deadly plug, and I carried this every single night, pretty much of the entire season. I carried the Duck all season long, and we'll talk about that. So this is a little RG I got. He makes some cool stuff. This is a little floater. It actually floats, so it's stitched right below the surface. So what's cooler? What works better than that for mullet? Now, if you're a daytime guy, though, and this is what guys in the South do, right? Medium to small size spooks. So this is a 24/7. Here's a Mad Mantis he sent me. I'm specifically showing you this because I want feedback. Anybody fishing this? Want to give me some feedback on this baby? Because I think he calls it the plank. I haven't fished it very much. You can tell because it's just like a rear hook on it. But also small stuff. And unfortunately, I went to Florida and I brought all 4 of my Heddon Super Spooks and I can't find any of them. I don't know what happened. Our basement flooded, like really flooded. And like it was a little bit of a nightmare for me to find stuff. But, you know, small spooks like the Jumping Minnow or the Heddon Super Spook work remarkably well around mullet as well. Even though this is very small, it's the action. It's the presentation. It's that action is so similar to the way they move. I think it works really well. Jumping minnows. Man, are they popular around here, but, you know, they can't take much of a hook, and I think there's a little bit of hype.